such as Stonehenge, also in England, which memorializes the rising of the sun at the summer solstice. He believed that if the builders of this La Proxima Martian complex were leaving a message to themselves or to someone else who might come along later, then they might have laid the objects out in some recognizable, hopefully universal pattern, and indeed this is what they appear to have done. In calculating backwards, accounting for the regular tilting of the Martian poles relative to the ancient position of the sun rising up over the face on the day of the Martian solstice, Richard came up with an extraordinarily ancient date, 330,000 years before the present, representing astronomically when Sidonia might have been constructed, La Proxima. In 1985, Dr. Mark Carlotto, a computer image specialist formerly with the Analytic Sciences Corporation, was approached on Richard's behalf to do some 3D computer reconstruction of Sidonia for the developing Sidonia investigation. The idea was to develop a computer model for the site from the original 2D NASA Viking data set. Could you go back one slide? There's a slide missing. Back. Oh, this is it. This is the 3D computer reconstruction of the face from a 2D Viking data set. On the left is the original NASA enhanced photograph, and on the right is the computer reconstruction, which puts to rest forever the fact that this is that this is a natural object, because the computer was able to faithfully reconstruct it. Dr. Carlotto's peer-reviewed scientific paper on his reconstructions appeared in the May 1988 issue of Applied Optics. The paper detailing his 3-year analysis and elaborate 3D reconstructions of Sidonia, both of the low sun Viking image and the second higher angle view, have forever scientifically laid to rest NASA's continuing excuse for not officially pursuing this research, that the face is merely a trick of light and shadow, La Proxima. Dr. Carlotto's main contributions to the continuing Mars mission investigation were set down in his own published book, Martian Enigmas, which brought to light details never before seen on the face, including teeth inside the mouth, La Proxima, including teeth inside the mouth cavern and other facial markings, like the banding along the hairline. Back up one. This is an artistic reconstruction. Okay, the banding along the hairline and the cross banding on the forehead, as you can see. La Proxima. La Proxima. Dr. Carlotto later committed to film a 3D computer flyover of the entire complex, which was shown to the Washington Press Corps in September 1993, concurrent with the mysterious loss of NASA's Mars observer, La Proxima. Mars observer, of course, could have confirmed the intelligence hypothesis concerning the monuments of Mars. La Proxima. After setting his own discoveries and the history of this unique investigation down in his seminal book, The Monuments of Mars, in 1987, a reader wrote to Richard objecting to his declaration that the D&M pyramid was 5-sided instead of 4, La Proxima. Errol Torren of the Defense Mapping Agency in Washington, D.C., took Richard to task for such a statement. He ended up also joining the Mars mission team, not only proving Hoagland right, but discovering that the mathematical message that Richard had discovered at Sidonia was much more complicated than Hoagland could have possibly imagined. For what had initially appeared to be simple plane geometrical measurements between key objects at Sidonia has now turned out to be a trigonometric code When Richard received Errol's grasp of the trigonometric functions laid over the D&M pyramid by La Proxima, these are the trig function tables, the sine, cosine, where the math was added not only to the pyramid, but up to the city, to the face, to the cliff, to the dulles. I am not a mathematician, so I cannot explain these tables to you, but if you want to see them sometime during the conference, I'd be glad to show these to you. Richard discovered that the same geometry also connected the face, D&M, the city, cliff, and dulles. The redundant geometrical message spoke to Richard and Errol of another, little-used branch of mathematics known as tetrahedral geometry, or the 3D geometry involved extensively in the 2D equilateral triangle, La Proxima. The 19.5-degree angle between the tetrahedral pyramid, you really can't see it, on the crater, and to the cliff that runs from the dulles up to the cliff is a 19.5-degree angle. This 19.5 degrees comes up over and over again in the angles between all of the objects at Sidonia. These were telling the two, Richard and Errol, to look at tetrahedra, which is the simplest 3D building block in nature. La Proxima. One of the wonders of the tetrahedron is the way it fits into a sphere. If one corner or vertex is placed on the pole of a rotating sphere, the other three vertices will lie at 19.5 degrees relative to the equator. When one applies this technique to a planet, La Proxima, the 3 points, 1, 2, 3, which lie at 19.5 degrees above or below the equator, display startling planetary phenomena, such as the La Proxima, such as the great volcano on Mars, Olympus Mons. Oh. Did we pass Jupiter? Go back one. Okay. The great red spot on Jupiter, the great spots on Uranus and Neptune, La Proxima, and the latitude on the Sun, La Proxima, where peak sunspots arise. On Earth, 19.5 degrees is where the great shield volcano under the big island of Hawaii, Mauna Loa, lies, as well as the approximate latitude where the Earth gives birth to hurricanes. So the monuments of Mars seem to be telling us to look at these planetary forces through the language of tetrahedral geometry. But why was this message so important? Are these great centers of planetary activity the visible outpourings of unseen energy from higher spatial dimensions to lower ones, described uniquely by tetrahedral geometry? Is the energy on which our solar system runs hyperdimensional, from beyond this third dimension, and not from thermonuclear solar energy alone? And is one major proof of this remarkable hypothesis to be found in the still mysterious forces which fuel the outer planets, like Neptune, with winds clocked at over 1,400 miles per hour by NASA's Voyager spacecraft. Worlds that exhibit extraordinary activity, yet which receive almost no known energy from the very distant sun. Since his initial decoding of the Martian structures, Mr. Hoagland has focused extensively on potential tests, proofs, and implications of such a hyperdimensional physics. This physics is, in fact, the same conceptualization of energy, space, and time Einstein that is popularly known as unified field theory, most often attributed to Albert Einstein's final work. In fact, Richard has now discovered evidence that these seminal ideas of information and energy flowing from higher unseen dimensions can be traced specifically to the founding father of modern physics, James Clerk Maxwell, in the mid-1870s. For some reason, this extraordinarily important beginning was subverted, and modern physics has apparently been heading in the wrong direction ever since. La prossima. For his efforts, in 1993, in a special ceremony in Washington, D.C., Richard Hoagland was presented with the first International Angstrom Foundation Medal for Excellence in Science by Foundation Director Lars Jonas Angstrom, who is the great-grandson of Anders Jonas Angstrom, professor of astronomy and physics at the University of Uppsala in Sweden, after whom the international standard for the measurement of electromagnetic radiation, the angstrom, was named. La prossima. It was the first time that the medal had been given to a non-Swedish national. By awarding this medal, the Angstrom Foundation acknowledged the rediscovery of this physics through the successful decoding of the monuments of Mars is perhaps the most important achievement to date of this still infant research. In Steven Spielberg's immortal film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the aliens who came to visit communicated through a tonal vocabulary, the language of sound, also a mathematical process. But could there be a more elegant, far more permanent means to communicate through time and space, through a language in which mankind is virtually now illiterate, because we do our best to avoid it or to learn it and then quickly forget it, the language of geometry. La prossima. Set in stone, this eternal language lives in the pyramids of Egypt, La prossima, Mexico, even China and Japan. It lives in the stone circles of England, La prossima, Ireland, Scotland, and France. Geometry, based on the equilateral triangle and the 360-degree circle, was a prerequisite to the study of philosophy in the Platonic Academy. A sign hung over the Academy entrance which said, "Only those who know geometry may enter here." Geometry, which was studied in the first degrees of initiation in the ancient mystery schools. Tetrahedral geometry, based on the equilateral triangle, a rediscovered key to understanding the very universe around us, whose fundamental application to unraveling the foundations of our universe, as exemplified in the successful decoding of the monuments of Mars, is increasingly obscured by many voices, from the progress supposedly represented by the substitution of the metric system for far more ancient standards, to an increasing irreverence in society for the study of math, which only serves to exacerbate our amnesia even further in a search for who we are. Geometry, in its related, unchanging mathematical codes, not script, not sight, not sound, is the only true language possible between interplanetary or even interstellar species. The legacy given to us, so the Sumerians and others claimed, by the gods, whoever they were. A language now threatened with extinction by humanity, which is increasingly, deliberately ignorant of its fundamental role, according to Sidonia, in decoding the true nature of reality. La prossima. In 1992, while on a speaking engagement